My abusive sister made my childhood hell. But I finally got my revenge. I don't think I've ever told anyone the full story of what it was like growing up with my sister, Lisa. To outsiders, we were just a normal family, 2 kids, middle-class upbringing, parents who worked hard and cared for us. But behind closed doors, things were different. Lisa was 6 years older than me, and from as far back as I can remember, she made my life miserable. Lisa was the golden child. She was the type of kid who got straight A's, was captain of the cheerleading team, and never seemed to struggle with anything. My parents adored her, constantly praising her achievements and holding her up as an example of what I should strive to be. They'd say things like, "Why can't you be more like your sister?" or "Lisa never had trouble with this, why are you struggling?" I, on the other hand, was the awkward, quiet kid who never seemed to measure up. I had learning disabilities that made school a constant battle, and I spent most of my childhood trying to fly under the radar. I wasn't stupid, but I couldn't focus the way Lisa could. My parents never really understood, and there was always this unspoken expectation that I was failing to live up to the family standards set by my sister. Lisa knew she was the favorite, and she used it against me at every turn. It wasn't just that she was better at everything, it was that she made sure I knew it. She'd belittle me constantly, calling me stupid, useless, or weak. She'd laugh when I struggled with my homework, and if I dared to ask for help, she'd just roll her eyes and tell me to figure it out on my own. One day, when I was around 8 years old, I was struggling with a math problem. I'd spend hours at the kitchen table, my pencil hovering over the page, completely stuck. Lisa walked by and saw me staring blankly at the worksheet. "What's wrong, dummy? Can't figure out something as simple as this?" she sneered. I remember looking up, desperate for any kind of help. "Can you show me how to do it?" She snatched the pencil out of my hand and scribbled nonsense all over my paper, crossing out the problem with a flourish. "There. Now you're failing even harder. Have fun explaining that to Mom and Dad." She tossed the pencil back at me and walked away, leaving me on the verge of tears. My parents came home later and saw the mess she'd made of my homework, but they didn't believe me when I said it was Lisa. "She's always trying to help you," they'd say. "You're just making excuses." I was punished for not finishing my work, and Lisa just watched, smirking from the other room. As we got older, her cruelty only escalated. She had a way of turning even the simplest things into opportunities to humiliate me. When I was 10, I had my first real birthday party. I'd never had many friends, but this time, my parents let me invite a few kids from school, and for once, I was excited. I thought maybe this would be the start of something good, maybe people would finally see me for who I was and not just Lisa's loser little brother. Lisa had other plans. During the party, she decided it would be funny to play a prank. She waited until we were all sitting around the table, and then she accidentally knocked my birthday cake off the counter. It splattered everywhere, chocolate and frosting all over the floor. I just sat there, stunned, as everyone stared. Lisa, of course, put on her best innocent act. "Oops. Sorry, I'm such a klutz," she giggled, but I knew she'd done it on purpose. The kids laughed, and I felt my face flush with embarrassment. The party was effectively ruined, and when my parents asked what happened, Lisa just shrugged and said it was an accident. I spent the rest of the day in my room, trying to hold back tears as I listened to her and her friends laughing downstairs. There were countless moments like that, small but deliberate acts designed to make me feel insignificant. Lisa thrived on power and control, and she got it by making me feel weak. She'd shove me into closets, lock the door, and walk away, leaving me trapped and terrified. Sometimes she'd let me out after a few minutes, but other times, I'd be stuck for hours until one of my parents finally noticed I was missing. They'd yell at me for hiding, and Lisa would just watch, arms crossed, basking in the satisfaction of knowing I couldn't tell them the truth without being dismissed. But it wasn't just the physical torment that got to me, it was the emotional manipulation. Lisa knew exactly how to push my buttons, and she never missed an opportunity. She'd taunt me about my friends, telling me they only hung out with me because they felt sorry for me. She'd make fun of my clothes, my interests, and anything else she could think of to remind me that, in her eyes, I was worthless. The worst was when she found out about my drawings. I started drawing when I was about 10. It was one of the few things that made me feel like I had some kind of control over my world. I'd spend hours sketching superheroes, fantastical creatures, and entire worlds where I could be anyone but myself. My drawings were my escape, my way of coping with the chaos Lisa caused. One afternoon, I was in my room, working on a new piece, when Lisa barged in. She saw my sketchbook and snatched it out of my hands before I could stop her. She flipped through the pages, her expression twisting with mock disgust. "What is this garbage? You really think this is any good?" she laughed, ripping a page out and crumpling it into a ball. "Stop it, Lisa!" I yelled, trying to grab the book back, but she just shoved me away. She ripped out page after page, tossing them around like confetti. My heart sank as I watched her destroy something that meant so much to me, something I'd poured my soul into. "These drawings are trash, just like you," she sneered, throwing the last crumpled page in the trash bin. I stood there, stunned and shaking, as she walked out of my room. I spent hours picking up the shredded pieces of my sketches, feeling like my whole world had been torn apart. I stopped drawing for a long time after that, too scared that anything I created would just be used against me. My parents never knew the full extent of what was going on. They were always busy, working long hours to provide for us, and by the time they got home, they were too exhausted to notice the tension between me and Lisa. If I ever tried to tell them, they'd just brush it off as typical sibling rivalry. "She's your sister, and she loves you," they'd say. But Lisa's love was nothing but poison. By the time I was 16, I'd learned how to avoid her as much as possible. I spent most of my time locked away in my room or at the library, anywhere but home. I poured all my energy into my schoolwork, determined to get good grades so I could go to college and get away from her for good. I wasn't the most confident kid, but I was smart, and I knew that education was my ticket out. I managed to land a scholarship to a university far from home. Leaving for college felt like breaking free from a prison I'd been trapped in for years. I packed my bags, said my goodbyes, and didn't look back. For the first time, I felt a sense of hope. I was finally out of Lisa's reach, and I vowed never to let anyone treat me like that again. College was everything I'd hoped it would be and more. I felt like I was finally breathing fresh air after years of suffocating under Lisa's shadow. I threw myself into my studies, determined to make something of myself. I even picked up drawing again, tentatively at first, but soon with a renewed passion. I started taking art classes and sharing my work with new friends who appreciated it in a way Lisa never could. For the first time, I had real friends, people who liked me for who I was and not because they felt obligated. I met Matt, my roommate, during freshman orientation, and we hit it off instantly. He was laid back, supportive, and always had my back, the kind of friend I never had growing up. We'd stay up late playing video games, hitting the gym, or just talking about life. It was such a stark contrast to the constant tension I'd felt at home. I also met my future wife, Emily, during my sophomore year. We were both in the same marketing class, and I remember being completely mesmerized the first time I saw her. She had this effortless grace about her, with her long red hair and warm smile. She was the kind of person who could light up a room just by walking in, and for some reason, she noticed me. Emily and I became study partners, meeting up in coffee shops and library corners to work on assignments. We'd joke around, swapping stories about our lives, and it wasn't long before those study sessions turned into dates. She was supportive, encouraging, and genuinely interested in me as a person, something I wasn't used to. She never made me feel small or stupid, she made me feel valued. When I finally told her about Lisa, I expected her to be shocked or pitying, but instead, she listened with compassion and anger on my behalf. "You didn't deserve any of that," she said firmly. "And you're not weak, you're stronger than you know." It was the first time I'd ever heard anyone say that, and it gave me the courage to start seeing myself differently. After graduation, I landed a job in marketing at a tech company, and Emily was right there with me. She had a talent for networking and quickly made a name for herself in her family's business circles. We got engaged a year later, and soon after, we were married. Emily's family was well-off, wealthy, even, but they never made me feel like an outsider. They welcomed me with open arms, treating me with a kindness I hadn't known growing up. For the first time, I felt like I was part of something healthy and loving. We bought a beautiful house, and my life was finally falling into place. But Lisa's shadow still loomed. She hadn't changed much since I'd left home. She'd married a guy named Mike, had 2 kids, and seemed to be living the perfect suburban life. But whenever we saw each other at family gatherings, she was still the same vindictive person underneath it all. Lisa couldn't stand the fact that I was happy. She'd make snide remarks about Emily's family's wealth, suggesting I was just mooching off my wife. "Must be nice to have a rich wife to take care of you," she'd say, loud enough for everyone to hear. It was like she couldn't fathom that I'd made something of myself without her interference. One day, at a family barbecue, Lisa's pettiness hit a new low. We were all sitting around, and Lisa couldn't resist taking a jab at me. "So, how's it feel being a trophy husband?" she sneered. "Must be nice to sit back and let Emily pay for everything." I felt my blood boil. I was sick of her trying to tear me down, but I'd never confronted her in front of everyone before. I'd always just let it slide, too scared to rock the boat. But not this time. I was done being her punching bag. "You know what, Lisa?" I said, standing up. "I'm tired of you acting like you're better than everyone else. You've spent your whole life putting me down, and I'm done with it. You bullied me, humiliated me, and made my childhood hell. And for what? To make yourself feel better? You're not perfect, Lisa, you're just a sad, bitter bully who can't stand to see anyone else happy." The backyard went silent. My parents looked stunned, and Lisa was red-faced, clearly not expecting me to call her out. Emily stepped up beside me, her arm around my shoulders. "She's right," Emily said, glaring at Lisa. "I've watched you treat him like crap for years, and it ends now. You're not going to tear him down anymore." Lisa's husband, Mike, shifted uncomfortably, and for the first time, I saw a crack in Lisa's facade. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. Instead, she turned and stormed into the house, slamming the door behind her. My parents tried to smooth things over, but I'd already said what needed to be said. For years, I'd carried the weight of Lisa's abuse, and finally, I'd thrown it off. I wasn't that scared little boy anymore, and I wasn't going to let her control me. Reddit update 1 month later. OP/AITA for finally calling out my abusive sister at a family gathering? Hey, Reddit. I've been wrestling with this for a while, so I figured I'd get some outside opinions. My sister Lisa and I have a rough history. She bullied me relentlessly throughout my childhood. She'd lock me in closets, rip up my things, and constantly belittle me. My parents never believed me, so I just dealt with it alone. Now, as adults, she still finds ways to tear me down, usually with snide comments about my life or my marriage to my wife, Emily. Recently, at a family barbecue, Lisa made another jab about how I'm a trophy husband and only successful because of my wife's money. I finally snapped and called her out in front of everyone, detailing all the abuse she put me through growing up. My parents were shocked, and my wife backed me up, but now they think I went too far. Lisa stormed off, and we haven't spoken since. My parents are upset, and I'm wondering if I overreacted. Aita? Top comment. NTA. Your sister sounds awful, and you've clearly been holding in a lot of pain. It's about time someone called her out. Your parents should have listened to you when you were younger, but it's never too late to stand up for yourself. You deserve to be happy without her constant negativity. Good on you for finally speaking up, and props to your wife for supporting you. Stay strong. OP's response. Thank you. It's been a long time coming, and I guess I just reached my breaking point. I've tried to forgive and move on, but it's hard when she never takes responsibility for what she did. My wife's been amazing through all of this, and I feel so lucky to have her in my corner. I don't know what the future holds for me and Lisa, but I know I can't keep pretending everything's okay when it's not. After that confrontation, things changed. My parents tried to downplay it, saying they hadn't realized how bad things were between me and Lisa. But they still didn't fully grasp the extent of the damage she'd done. Lisa stopped showing up to family gatherings, and honestly, I didn't miss her. For the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe without her constant presence dragging me down. Emily and I kept moving forward, building the life we'd always dreamed of. We started our own graphic design firm, combining her artistic talent with my marketing skills. Business was booming, and we found ourselves busier than ever, but in the best way. We traveled whenever we could, exploring places I'd only dreamed of visiting as a kid. One evening, after a long day at work, Emily and I were sitting on the back patio, sipping wine and enjoying the sunset. I couldn't help but feel grateful for how far I'd come from the scared, beaten-down kid who used to hide in his room, to a man who'd built a life on his own terms. "Do you ever think about reaching out to her?" Emily asked softly, her eyes searching mine. She didn't have to say Lisa's name, I knew exactly who she meant. I sighed, leaning back in my chair. "Sometimes. But then I remember everything she put me through, and I don't know if I can ever fully forgive her. She never even apologized." Emily nodded, squeezing my hand. "You don't have to. It's okay to protect your peace. She doesn't deserve to be part of your life just because she's family." She was right. For the first time, I was finally free of Lisa's control, and I wasn't about to let her back in just because she was feeling guilty. A few months later, Lisa reached out to me. She sent a long, carefully crafted email that read like a confession of sorts. She said she was in therapy, trying to work through her issues, and that she was sorry for the way she treated me. She wanted to meet, to talk, to make amends. Part of me was tempted, after all, she was my sister. But another part of me, the part that had spent years picking up the pieces of my shattered confidence, couldn't forget the pain she'd caused. I wrote back, thanking her for her honesty but making it clear that I wasn't ready to forgive. I'd moved on, and I was happy. I didn't need her validation or her apologies to feel whole. Maybe one day I'd be able to let go completely, but for now, I was content with keeping her at arm's length. Reddit update 2, 1 year later. Opie, my sister tried to reconnect after years of abuse, but I'm finally free and happy without her. Hey everyone, it's been a while since my last post. After calling out my abusive sister at a family gathering, things changed drastically. Lisa stopped coming around, and our parents are still trying to pretend everything's fine, but I've made my peace with it. Recently, Lisa reached out, saying she's in therapy and wants to make amends. I'm glad she's working on herself, but I'm not ready to let her back into my life. My wife and I have built something beautiful together, a successful business, a home filled with love, and a future that's bright and full of possibilities. For the first time, I'm truly happy, without the weight of my sister's abuse hanging over me. I've learned that I don't need her apology to move on. I'm focusing on my own happiness, and that's more than enough. Thanks to everyone who supported me along the way. Top comment. You're doing the right thing, OP, protecting your peace is the most important thing. Your sister might be trying to change, but that doesn't erase the years of pain she caused. Keep doing what's best for you, and don't feel pressured to forgive before you're ready. It sounds like you've built an incredible life, and you deserve every bit of happiness. OP's response. Thank you so much. It's taken a lot of work to get here, but I'm finally in a place where I feel strong and whole. I'm not angry anymore, just relieved to be free. I don't know if I'll ever fully reconcile with my sister, but I'm okay with that. For now, I'm focusing on the people who love and support me, and that's all I need.